Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, I bring you a powerful, emotional, and dramatic love story filled with courage between the strong-willed girl Lai Tu-deep and the brilliant CEO James, a man burdened by deep emotional scars. In the previous episode, we witnessed a sinister plot orchestrated by the villain John, a man who lurks in the shadows, manipulating everything to serve his dark purposes. John had two of his henchmen disguise themselves as police officers to stage a ridiculous scene, attempting to arrest Deep in front of her family. His goal wasn't just to disgrace her, but to break the spirit of a woman who had always stood strong against him. But the plan failed. At the last moment, thanks to James's unexpected vigilance and the covert surveillance network he had set up, John's scheme was exposed. However, that failure only drove John to become more reckless. In a fit of rage, he went so far as to burn down Deep's small house, a place filled with childhood memories, the garden she lovingly tended, and a symbol of her modest yet sincere dreams. The flames were extinguished, but the emotional wounds left on Deep and James were far from healed. James, once a businessman who only knew logic and strategy, had truly changed. His pain was not just for the lost house, but for the suffering endured by the woman he loved. Amid the smoldering remains, he discovered strange cigarette butts suspiciously close to the scene. They didn't belong to anyone in the neighborhood, and that small anomaly awakened the investigator within him. Without hesitation, James contacted Tung, his childhood friend, now an undercover police officer. Their bond wasn't just friendship, but absolute trust, a rare thing in James's world. He was no longer a passive observer. He had officially declared war on John, not only to protect Deep, but to restore justice for all those who had suffered at the hands of this villain. The story is reaching its climax. Will James and Tung's counterattack be powerful enough to force John out of hiding? Can Deep overcome the emotional trauma and find peace again in the arms of the man she loves? And in a world full of deceit and schemes, will justice truly prevail? Join us in today's video to follow this gripping journey. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what happens next. After Mr. Nung Trang's father proactively proposed a partnership and promised to supply a stable source of timber for James's company, a glimmer of hope seemed to emerge amid the dark and pressured times. For months, James had been struggling with a severe shortage of raw materials. Longtime partners had either pulled out or dramatically raised their prices. Mr. Nung's offer came at just the right moment, like a lifeline tossed in the middle of a storm. Without hesitation, James immediately arranged a business trip to the source, not only to inspect the wood quality, but also to negotiate the contract terms face to face. It was a strategic move, and this time he decided to bring Deep along. When she heard the news, Deep couldn't hide her surprise. Yet in her eyes sparkled a quiet joy. She had always stood beside James, witnessing the burdens and pressures he carried, and now, being able to accompany him on this journey, even if just for business, brought a warm flutter to her heart. Before leaving, Deep visited the elderly couple who had once taken her in. They weren't just kind strangers who helped her through hardship, they were the only family she could rely on. With a gentle and respectful tone, she explained the travel plans, reassuring them completely. Not forgetting her responsibilities, she tidied the house, carefully watered each plant, and prepared a few simple meals to leave in the fridge. Every gesture reflected her thoughtfulness, grace, and deep gratitude. This business trip wasn't just another work mission. It was a rare moment of peace James wanted to share with Deep. He knew that amidst the chaos of schemes, betrayals, and manipulation, She was the one person who made him feel like he could be truly himself. As the countryside passed by outside the window and a soft breeze played through her hair, Deep's eyes shimmered with happiness. It had been a long time since she felt this way, a strange yet comforting peace, sitting beside the man who had risked everything to protect her. But that peace didn't last long. When they arrived at Mr. Nhung's warehouse, James quickly sensed something was off. The timber samples displayed outside were neatly arranged, uniform in color, and visually appealing. But with years of experience in the industry, James wasn't easily fooled. He requested to inspect the deeper storage areas where the timber was stacked more discreetly. And then, the truth began to surface. Many wooden planks inside showed signs of cracking, termite damage, warping, and even discoloration, as if treated with low-grade chemicals. James immediately recognized the trick. Dual-quality goods. Good on the surface, but swapped for inferior stuff beneath. If he signed a full package contract without strict quality checks, his company could lose both its reputation and finances, even facing lawsuits if defective products reached clients. But James kept his composure. He didn't confront Mr. Nhung directly, a man who was not only Trang's father, but also held a respected position in the region. Instead, James chose a diplomatic yet sharp approach. He agreed to pay 30% upfront, with the remaining balance to be disbursed only after the goods passed a strict quality inspection at the company's warehouse. The reason he gave was perfectly reasonable: to standardize the inbound quality control process under the new ISO protocols. What sounded like a technical procedure was actually a clear, unspoken message. I'm not someone you can fool easily.
On the way back, the atmosphere in the chaos was dense but the mulosi in the unto. The golden siap the setting sun si the gym thâu du the window si, ca sitting ánh sắc glow over game si pensive face. He see han the seated on the citizen win, but he see a si or figure si find the hasan, where the face si kasim to signal an opposing si tom. Beside him, silently watching. At time one, Sigenly policy her hand over his sea and we see but.
You're worried about the company, aren't you? James gave a slight nod and turned to look at her. His eyes, usually firm and determined, now carried a deep concern. I know this shipment is problematic, but if I reject it, production will halt. Hundreds of workers will lose their jobs, and contracts with partners will fall through. One misstep, and everything I've built could collapse. Deep squeezed his hand, smiling softly, her voice calm and reassuring. I trust your decision, and no matter what happens, I'll be by your side. A simple sentence, yet it melted away the tension like a soothing balm. In that moment, James realized something. Sometimes, what a man needs most is not advice, but someone who stands beside him, ready to walk with him through anything. A few days later, James arranged to meet someone special. Deep was stunned when the person who walked in was none other than Tung, the friend she thought had disappeared long ago. Tung, you're back in the country, Deep exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. Tung smiled, nodding slowly with emotion in his eyes. I've been back for a while, but for safety reasons, I had to stay hidden. Today, James wants the three of us to sit down together for the first time. And maybe the most important time. The room fell silent. No words were spoken, but the air was thick with gravity. James looked at Deep, then spoke slowly. Tung isn't just my close friend. He's an undercover cop. He's been infiltrating John's network all this time. Deep froze. In that moment, everything clicked. The near miraculous escapes. The strangers who had shown up just in time all bore the fingerprints of someone silently watching over her. Tongue met her gaze, voice steady and sincere. I'm sorry I kept it from you. But everything I did was to protect you and James. James gave a quiet nod. His eyes held no reproach, only understanding. In a silent war, sometimes lies are the only way to keep others safe. Tongue placed an old leather notebook on the table. Inside were all the data, diagrams, and evidence he had gathered during his covert mission. But this time, I don't want to fight alone. I want the three of us to face John together. Not just for justice, but for the company, for the innocent people he's used. And for you, Deep, the woman we both love. His last words brought a stillness to the room. But there was no jealousy, no rivalry, only truth and a choice. Deep said nothing, but her eyes turned to James, the man who had never faltered, no matter the storm. Tongue followed her gaze, then smiled gently. I know I'm no longer the one you chose, and I wish you both happiness. But at the very least, let me fight with you, one last time. James nodded, his expression resolute. This wasn't about pride, only a shared goal. The three of them sat together, by cups of cooling coffee, beneath the warm glow of a yellow lamp. They analyzed the money flow, traced John's criminal network, and planned how to insert people into the next shipment, closing the legal loopholes John had exploited for so long. James, the strategist who understood the market and internal systems. Tongue, the silent warrior, now ready to step into the light. Deep, no longer a victim, but a bridge, holding two men from different paths together in a shared fight for what's right, not for vengeance. The meeting ended late into the night. As they prepared to part, Tongue stood, looked at James and Deep one last time, and said quietly,
Take care of each other. You deserve happiness, Deep and James. You're the only one who can give it to her. Then he turned and walked away, without looking back. But Deep knew, even if Tongue wouldn't walk beside them from now on, everything he had done silently, tirelessly, would forever be an irreplaceable part of the battle that lay ahead.
At last, after all the turmoil, James took Deep to a truly special place, not a fancy restaurant with dazzling lights, nor a lavish hotel in the city center. It was just a quiet little corner on the outskirts of town, where people could sit down, choose a pure white plaster statue, and gently paint colors onto their dreams. James carefully painted each brick in warm, earthy tones. His hand was steady, but his eyes carried a quiet sorrow, as if, deep in his heart, he was rebuilding a shelter for two souls that had once been wounded. Deep added bright flowers around the house, red, yellow, purple, as if each petal represented a hidden dream she had once kept to herself. They didn't need to say much. Every brushstroke, every moment they shared, was its own quiet promise. When the statue was finished, James gently placed his hand on the roof and whispered, his voice like a breeze brushing past old fears and doubts. No matter what the future holds, I want this house to always have a place for you and for our dreams. Deep smiled, her eyes shimmering with light. I believe that if love lives in a house, then no matter how small it is, it will always feel warm. That night, they didn't mention John, nor the dangers that loomed ahead. Amid uncertainty, fear, and unresolved schemes, they chose to keep one night for themselves, a night with just the two of them, their little plaster house, and the flickering light of hope. But would that moment of peace last? Would the alliance of James, a man of vision and unwavering resolve, Tongue, the silent but fearless warrior, and Deep, a woman with a resilient heart and sharp instincts, be strong enough to stop someone like John, who was sinking deeper into the shadows of crime? When the light of faith is kindled in the dark, is it bright enough to lead the way? Everything will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss a single twist.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người ơi, thì hiện tại rất lâu rồi kênh của mình mới lại lên video nha mọi người. Do thời gian vừa rồi mình cũng có một chút việc bận, mà cũng là lý do chính là do kênh mình vừa rồi cái lượng tương tác nó không được lớn á mọi người. Video đăng lên nó không có nhiều lượt xem, nên mình đã ngưng lên video một thời gian, và bây giờ kênh mình bắt đầu lên video lại. Mình mong rằng có thể nhận được nhiều sự ủng hộ hơn từ phía mọi người, để mình có thể có động lực lớn hơn để ra video đều hơn. Và mọi người ơi, mọi người hãy đăng ký cho kênh mình để kênh mình có thể đủ được 1.000 người đăng ký nha mọi người. Và nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình cũng như muốn kênh mình ra video đều và những video hay hơn, thì mọi người hãy like cũng như chia sẻ video để những người khác cũng biết tới, để cho kênh mình có nhiều lượt xem hơn nha. Và bây giờ mình bắt đầu lên video lại, và thời gian tới mình sẽ cố gắng lên đều hơn nữa. Mong là mọi người sẽ ủng hộ tiếp tục cho kênh mình nha.